Evandro, hello. I was going to say good afternoon, but I think it's good morning for you because we're in
It
different
is
time
indeed.
zones. But thank you so much for taking the time and trouble to join me for this short interview. I guess a lot of people might have heard of your name, but a lot might not have done. So maybe we could just start with a simple question and tell us a bit about yourself, so your background and what it is you do.
Well, no trouble at all. Nathaniel, thank you very much for the opportunity. Now, the first question may sound simple to you, but it's very complicated when you ask
Okay.
somebody like me, because I've been doing a little bit of everything. I've been all over the place. But I'm essentially a conference interpreter. I have been for the last 30 years. I started in Brazil, my native country. My language is Portuguese. And originally my pair was Portuguese and English. I later added a few languages. And I started as, by totally, by accident, happenstance, really. I was asked to interpret, mind you, an encounter between the Duke of Edinburgh, recently deceased, late Prince Philip, and the Speaker of the House in Brazil, the House of Representatives in Brazil. I happened to be a clerk in that organ back then.
Wow.
And for lack of anybody else, and for lack of planning, typical Brazilian attitude, hey, this guy's arriving, we don't have an interpreter, get that guy, right? I found myself sitting on that chair and asked to mediate this conversation. So I have a fair recollection of how it went. It was an easy conversation and so on. And eventually, again, I was pushed overboard and I didn't drown, let's put it that way. But I, more than anything, really enjoyed the experience. And that's what planted the seed of interpreting in my heart. And from there, it grew. I quit my job with the House of Representatives, set up a translation agency, and was an interpreter for like 15 years in Brazil, teaching and myself interpreting, if you will, trying to learn as I went. And I was already doing it really well. And eventually I put my career on hold, went to Monterey Institute for a degree, because again, it was not sitting well that I was just this guy with no training, and I was training interpreters, talking about it and so on. From there, I went to Washington, D.C., started doing other summits. From there, I became the chief interpreter of ITU, a specialized agency of United Nations in Geneva, spent 7 years there. And at the end of 2016, I was a bit tired of what I was doing. I'm not a person for routine. And I got invited by Fordad Zabejan to come found KUDO. And here I am in New York City for the last 5 years.
Great. And that's a fascinating story, Evandro. I'd love to talk to you more about that when we have a bit more time. But I was just thinking, how on earth did you manage to get your first gig with Prince Philip? I'm sure many young budding interpreters would kill for that sort of opportunity.
Yes. It can. And the funny thing is, I tried as much as I could to push that away.
I bet
was
you did.
No interpreter. I got this call, and the call actually asked me, on the call, they asked me, are you wearing a suit and tie? Because there are certain places in the house where you can only go if you're properly dressed. And out of coincidence, it was not every day. I was a physical education teacher at that point. That was my first, my first background.
Wow. Okay.
And so mostly I was in very casual clothing. And that day I happened to be, I happened to have a tie on. And I said, well, yes, well, come over here. And then they just broke it to me, well, sit there. He's going to say this. You speak English, right? I said, no, listen, I can get by, but my English was, there were many holes in my English knowledge back then and so on. And I was, the closest they would ever get to an interpreter in that pickle they found themselves. But I'm very competitive, so I saw this for what it was as well. It was an opportunity in disguise, right? And I said, well, if this is a way out of my paper-pushing routine that's very mind-numbing where I am, why not? So I gave it a try, and it worked. So.
You mentioned KUDO just then, and I can see a little bit of branding in the background,
KUDO
logo, and you mentioned that you've been there since 2016. For people who don't know, what is KUDO and what is your role within KUDO?
Well, KUDO is a cloud-based platform for, to support let me rephrase that. KUDO is a cloud-based meeting platform. that provides you with full multilingual support. So think of it as, say, Skype or any other meeting platform, video collaboration platform, where you have a button, and by clicking on that button, you can conference in an interpreter. These are human interpreters sitting anywhere in the world, and you click on the button and you hear the voice of an interpreter in the language of your choosing. So English or French or Spanish. So it's a way to actually get us out of this conundrum where we find ourselves having to meet multilingually and not having the ability to go places and meet in person and so on. So KUDO allows you to pretty much mimic the experience of being in a call like this, and me having the opportunity of speaking Portuguese, and you having the opportunity of speaking English through the mediation of interpreters. That's in a long and big nutshell. It is.
Yeah, sure thing. And so, what's your role within KUDO?
I am what we call now here the Chief Language Officer. I think I made up that title because I was looking for something that would kind of indicate what I do. Yeah. It's, I'm a C-level executive in the company, but my little domain is languages, right? So we went with that. So Chief Language Officer is what I do here. I'm a co-founder as well. I founded it with Fardad Zabejan, Parham Akavan, and Annabelle Zabejan back in 2016 is when we started talking about it. The company was actually founded in October of that year, went into business really in January of 2017, which is when I actually moved physically back to the US.
Yeah, cool. Now, in your current role, I know you've been doing a lot of work, particularly over the last couple of years, to set up and run training for new interpreters on KUDO. Why was that such a priority for you, Evandro? Why have you spent so much time and energy doing that?
Because of two main things. Number one, because of our promise to what KUDO was meant to be. KUDO was meant to be a tool that, to do everything that I just mentioned it's supposed to do, but something that would center on the interpreters. For one simple reason, by making sure interpreters have what it takes to do a stellar job, we're automatically serving everybody else's needs, right? Because interpreters need to have sound, near perfect. They need to have image be something that really gives them the perfect sync in terms of, lip syncing and what you're saying and where your mouth is moving and so on. So by providing you with that, everybody else is happy. Now a delegate usually sits there, sometimes just playing solitaire until they call their his or her name. They're not really totally in the meeting. They're getting the gist of it. So if sound is not perfect, it still works for them, and it works for those taking verbatim notes. It works for everybody else in that realm except for the interpreters. So by serving the interpreters well, that's taken care of. Now, second reason is we're breaking new ground. We're introducing something that is a paradigm shift, right? I mean, the notion of pushing interpreters out of the room and asking them to do this through a technology that's at the mercy of internet connectivities and computer processing capacities and so on is a huge ask, right? So it put everybody in panic mode in the beginning. And the first reaction when you're dealing with a reality like this is, not me, why on my watch? It shouldn't be happening. Give me something else, right? And the only remedy to this, the only way out of this is knowledge and training and getting people comfortable with the platform. And there's only again, one way to do that, which is getting people in, showing them the ropes, asking them to give it a try, allowing them to make mistakes. And that is the essential, the essence of training.
Yes, I suppose in that sense, a cloud-based multilingual meeting platform is only as good as its multilingual component, which in this case is the human interpreters.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in terms of the training that interpreters receive before they go on? They get their first meeting on KUDO. What does, if I signed up tomorrow, or if anyone reading the article or listening to this interview, watching this interview, thought, I'd quite like to be an interpreter on KUDO, what could they expect to receive before that first meeting?
Well, first and foremost, they need to check a box where they can guarantee and assure everybody else that they are a conference interpreter. Mm-hmm. KUDO is a tool for conference interpreters, and you have to be one. You have to have enough experience. You have to have had training, either having taught yourself and be recognized as an interpreter in the market, or having gone to a school and so on. So the major thing I want to dismiss is that, there's this tool out there now. Anybody can go there and let's give it a try, and that will make me an interpreter. That's not the case. Mm-hmm. You have to already be not just an interpreter, but a conference interpreter. Mm-hmm. Now, if you identify as a conference interpreter, then there's a process to get you into KUDO and get you comfortable with the platform and make you a pro in the platform. And the journey is as follows. You go to an online web address and you take an online course. I don't like to call it a course. It's like a tutorial. You go there and you're going to see my face. Hey, welcome. This is KUDO, blah, blah, blah. And we walk you through the many things you need to learn. So this is how you configure the platform. This is the gear that you need to have. These are, this is the fine print in the contract that you will eventually sign if you come work for KUDO. Mm-hmm. So we prepare you with the theoretical knowledge, if you will, of everything that you need to do once you get into the platform. Mm-hmm. At the end of that, you get an email saying that, hey, this is there's one last step for you to become what we call certified in the use of the platform. Mm-hmm. And again, I need to clarify what certification means in that case. Certification is something that the technology platforms often resort to make it known to anybody that you are now proficient in the use of their tools. That's exactly what we mean when we say that somebody's a KUDO certified anything. Mm-hmm. By calling it KUDO certified interpreter, the interpreting community got all up in arms saying, hey, who is KUDO to certify me as an interpreter? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we're not certifying you as an interpreter. We're certifying you as KUDO. That's the only thing we're doing. Mm-hmm. We should have called it something else, but now it's too late.
Yes, it's out there. Yeah, that ship has sailed. Yeah.
So at the end, you get that email, and the email says, to complete your certification process, quote unquote, you need to attend at least one online webinar for interpreters. We call them KIOS, KUDO Interpreter Onboarding Webinar. These are free webinars that you can sign up to on the website, and we try to accommodate as many colleagues as we can on a weekly basis. I have my colleagues, Lara, Janet, Natalie, Chang, Ivana, Julie, Eleanor in Hong Kong. Again, they're all over the world. We can cover the 24 hours in the day. And they get you, again, it's a 1 hour meeting, a mock meeting, where, again, we give you a refresher and we read a couple of speeches for you to interpret using KUDO. And you take relay and you do the handover and you pretty much apply in practice what you just heard in the course, right? That's number one. So with that, you're KUDO certified, which means that, hey, I've taken a look, I know where to click. If need be, I can claim that I know the platform. And if need be, I can get into a meeting and with some supervision, I can do a good job. Now we have 11,000 colleagues who have taken this journey from I guess it was September of 2018 when we introduced it to now. There was a huge spike, of course, because of the pandemic. And now we are at 11. We just broke the barrier of 11,000 colleagues who have been through this experience. Many of them, mind you, are interpreters who are working for their own institutions, but because the institution is now using KUDO, they need to have that proficiency. So it's not to say that they are KUDO interpreters, that they are available to work for us on a given day.
Sure.
Now we're doing something else. Now we are inviting those colleagues. We created a second tier, if you will, of certification called KUDO Pro, because we eventually started being asked to provide interpreters for meetings. That was not the plan. The plan was just to provide the technology. But because it got so granular and because it started to go into places where they never had used interpreters before, they started coming back to us to say, hey, I can't spell interpreter. Can you please take care of this for me? And then we had to go get colleagues. Are you free? Are you available? And we became a little bit of a recruiting department again. Like 80% of the clients still have their own interpreters, but we started doing it. So we needed to vet interpreters. We needed to make sure that these guys not only have the right credentials, that these colleagues, better said, have the right credentials, but they also have the perfect connectivity, the right equipment, and that they are totally familiar with the platform, meaning they've had enough exposure to it. And then we created a second tier called KUDO Pro, which you can apply to. There's an application link on the website that I can share with you later, where any KUDO certified interpreter can now apply. It's very rigorous. If you try the application process, it will stop you many times over if you don't have a certain number of meetings, if you don't have a certain experience, and so on. There are ways around it, right? Like, for example, if you are a conference interpreter and you have the degree and you want to, but again, you don't have 10 meetings on KUDO, which is what we ask for, 5 to 10. You can come and we can do a bit more training. We have the sound check parties where we, again, have you in for another hour and give you some more exposure to the platform, and we'll listen to you. Once we're satisfied, if every other, all the other boxes are ticked, then we can upgrade you to Pro.
Okay, thanks, Evandro. That's really interesting. So we've talked a little bit about what you can expect before your first meeting as an interpreter on KUDO. Does KUDO offer any sort of ongoing training or CPD for interpreters? You touched on that a little bit, but is there anything else?
Yes. Again, because we are totally dependent on the interpreters, and because of the value we attach to interpretation and interpreting, because of our DNA, where one of the co-founders is an interpreter, and many other colleagues who have joined us since are not just interpreters, but kind of thought leaders in this space. Barry Olsen, another guy in the UK whose name I'm not going to mention, and many other colleagues, Roberta from Brazil, and all my 8 colleagues in my department and so on. Again, interpreting is part of our DNA. And because of how fast we're growing, and with all the good things that are happening and so on, we have put a system in place. We have a campaign in place, which we're rolling out as we speak, to give back, to actually reach out to interpreters and provide them not just with the reassurance that they can do this, that they don't need to be afraid of the technology and so on, but also empower them with the knowledge that they need, not just in KUDO, but elsewhere. So we're lining up a series of renowned trainers, people who are already out there, colleagues who are already out there offering their courses and so on, who provide specific insight to interpreters in many other areas. We are putting a list together. We're going to contact them, and we are going to sponsor specific courses that they do, in which we'll try to buy a few seats and offer those opportunities to interpreters on a rotational basis. So KUDO Pro interpreters will start having that opportunity totally free of charge for them. So that's our way of, again, providing and giving back, but creating that community that continues to be excited, continues to feel that they have a voice in this and that they have a role to play, right? And again, the community that recognizes, which I hope comes out of this, the enormous importance that we attach to them.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us, Evandro, and very exciting that's sort of in the works as we speak, and I look forward to seeing more details about that. But perhaps just final question, because we're almost out of time. We've talked about CPD and training within KUDO, but I wonder if you have any more general advice looking ahead that you would give, about training to interpreters.
I guess look, if I were an interpreter, just still interpreting out there, I do occasionally interpreting here, mostly in KUDO every now and again. But I'm no longer in the game. I'm no longer interpreting every day. If I were an interpreter, I don't want to give anybody advice, but the advice I would give myself, what I would tell myself, having seen what I have seen, is that the sooner you try the many things that are out there on the horizon, the better off you will be. Again, history teaches us that, right? And at the Nuremberg trials, the interpreter who ended up changing the world and accepting the assignment were students out of the University of Geneva, because the celebrity interpreters of back then pushed that away and said it cannot be done, not in a million years. This is going to make you crazy. This is the speed is too high. This is again, I don't want to be not on my watch, right? And it fell on the lap of these colleagues, and there was business reason for it. They needed a fast trial. They needed to do it differently. The same situation is currently with us now, where we have a business need. We need to continue to make multilingual meetings possible. The longer it takes you to get your feet wet on this, the worse off you will be. And we see advice out there like, oh, wait it out, this is going to pass, and so on. The longer you wait, the worse off you will be. And there's no harm in trying. If tomorrow the situation gets totally reversed and we're back in business as usual, it did nothing bad to you. You just learned another craft and another tool, and you're better off than you were. So my advice is to keep an open mind and be ready and give it a try.
And that doesn't just need to be remote interpreting per se, does it? That could be any number of other tools that are out there and that are in development at the moment.
Yeah. We're now playing with AI, as you know, right? We have AI assist, things that are coming to aid the interpreters and so on. So the more knowledge you have about AI, the more knowledge about what this can and cannot do, the better off you will be.
We're going to call it a day, I think, there, Evandro, because I've got an eye on the clock and our allotted time is up. But I just want to thank you so much again for taking the trouble to take half an hour out of your busy schedule to answer a few questions for us. And I'm sure people will be able to find you online on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. And if there's any kind of follow up from any of this, I'm sure you're very happy for people to contact you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Nathaniel, for the opportunity. It's been a very nice chat.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Evandro.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.